Hey everybody, it's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today as we're finishing up our unit on the American Cultural Revolution. Today, we're going to talk about a very unique president that comes in after Gerald Ford, a guy named Jimmy Carter. And as much as we'll talk about Jimmy Carter today, the most important aspect of Jimmy Carter is the reflection the presidency cast upon the American people, because the American people learn a lot about themselves with Jimmy Carter as president. Let's get started. So in 1976, Gerald Ford, who was really unliked for pardoning Nixon, runs for re-election. And he runs against a guy named Jimmy Carter, and Jimmy Carter is going to win. And you're going to think, well, obviously, sure, and I'm sure he won in a landslide. Not really. While Jimmy Carter is going to win relatively convincingly because the blue areas are a little more populated, Gerald Ford won a lot of the election. And you're like, oh, so was Gerald Ford more popular? No, not necessarily. Jimmy Carter wins. And one of the reasons he doesn't win real convincingly is nobody knows who Jimmy Carter is. Like, literally, here's a cover of Time magazine. It's like, who's Jimmy Carter? Like, literally anybody could have run and beat Gerald Ford. Who's this guy? So Jimmy Carter, while he was a governor for a single term in Georgia, that's most of his political experience. Jimmy Carter is a peanut farmer from Georgia. And he has this big smile, as you can see here, that he's like known for having that smile. So in Georgia, at present day, there's a statue of the peanut with his smile. This is not like supposed to be offensive to him. This is like, we like Jimmy Carter. So Jimmy Carter wins the presidency in 1976. The reason, one of the reasons he doesn't get overwhelming votes is people don't know who he is, which is also why he gets a lot of votes. Let me explain. Jimmy Carter is not a politician. He says, I'm not a politician. Granted, he was a governor for a single term in Georgia, but other than that, he doesn't have political experience. America is disgusted with the corrupt politics of the Watergate scandal, and then Gerald Ford pardoning him, and then finding about the Pentagon Papers with Lyndon B. Johnson and all this. They just want somebody that has a strong moral compass, that you can trust, that's a good person with a good heart. And they pick Jimmy Carter. And if that's what you want, that's what you get. Jimmy Carter, and I try not to say good guy and bad guy a lot in history because that's not necessarily fair. I would say you're going to get almost everybody to agree with this in politics, all right? Jimmy Carter is probably one of the best people we've ever had to be the president. Meaning somebody that has a moral compass. He's going to do the right thing for the right reasons. This is him preaching in church. He taught Sunday school his entire life. He is a devout Christian. He is a compassionate person. He lives his life as a Christian the way Jesus would. Like, he is a quality human being. All right, one of the most trustworthy people you'll ever meet. Honest person. Again, wonderful person. So if you look at this picture, you're like, he looks a lot older there than the picture you showed us. So Jimmy Carter, at the time of this recording, which is 2022, Jimmy Carter is still alive. All right, let me show you a picture of Jimmy Carter in 2022, and you're like, oh gosh. Now, there's pictures of him not busted up, but I want to show this picture for a couple reasons. So this picture, I think, was taken a year or two ago. So Jimmy Carter, still alive, he's well into his 90s. He got hurt. He fell down. So Jimmy Carter, before I tell you about him getting hurt, which is just he just fell down and hit his head, had to get stitches, and it was all in the news. So Jimmy Carter, after he's done being the president, is going to spend most of his life building houses for Habitat for Humanity, like literally out there, like nailing stuff in as an ex-president, working for the poor, because that's what he thinks Christianity, you help for the poor, because he is a devout Christian. He falls down and hurts himself here and gets all these gashes as he had been working on, still at 90-some years old, working on Habitat for Humanity, like helping build houses with doing manual labor in the 90-something, and then hurts himself. Not at, I think at his own house he fell down and hurt himself. So he gets stitched up and all that. and then shows up the next day looking like this to help build houses again for the poor people at 90 plus years old. This is a quality human being, all right? So, America got exactly what they wanted. We wanted a quality, upstanding person with a strong moral compass to lead this country. Because America is a Christian country, and we're going to do Christian things the Christian way. Hooray for Jimmy Carter. And then Jimmy Carter makes statements like this. Says, if you don't want your tax dollars to help the poor, then stop saying you want a country based on Christian values, because you don't. Uh-oh. Jimmy Carter isn't like pretend Christian, capitalist Christian. He's like Christian. Jimmy Carter is going to live his life the way he thinks a Christian should. And because of that, it makes him a really ineffective president. Jimmy Carter, there's a right way of doing things and a wrong way in Jimmy Carter's mind. He refuses to compromise with people who he thinks is wrong, like Congress. Nothing gets done when Jimmy Carter is the president, really, in large part because he won't compromise with people that he thinks are wrong. So, the same reason that Jimmy Carter is probably the best human being as far as how he runs his own individual life that we've ever had as a president, because he is, again, devout, honest, will give you literally the shirt off his back if you need to, makes him an awful president because he won't compromise his moral values for anything, and very little gets done, and kind of the federal government kind of comes to a standstill with him as the president because he's not going to do something that he doesn't think is right, which means he's not going to give up anything when he compromises. So from the get-go, America gets exactly what they want, and then realize this might not be the exact thing that we need to be an effective president. So the question here, what was it about Jimmy Carter that made him both exactly what the American people wanted and an ineffective president simultaneously? So pause me, answer that completely, and we're moving on. So one of the biggest things that is going to happen in Jimmy Carter's time in office, and there's a few things, is this thing called the Iran hostage crisis. So the Middle East, because America has become dependent on oil, is really relying on the Middle East. So we get really involved in their politics and stuff, and there's a lot of tension towards America in the Middle East because of our involvement in the Middle East, and we're in the Middle East because they have oil. We're going to specifically talk about Iran. So let me zoom in here a little bit on Iran. Let me give you a little backstory of what's taking place in Iran in the 60s and 70s. Their leader is a guy named the Shah. He's a sack of crap. Let's just go ahead and start with that. However, he gives oil to America really cheap, so we work with him. But when I say he's a sack of crap, he literally, when people protest him, he just like opens fire on them with machine guns in Iran. It's absolutely horrific. He's a bad guy. But again, America still has worked with him because he is giving America oil for cheap. The people in Iran really do not like him. All right, they do not like the Shah. So who they want to lead their country is the religious leader of Islam in the region called the Ayatollah, which is the name of the position. The particular Ayatollah is the Ayatollah Khomeini, is the guy who's pictured here on this poster. That's who they want to take over Iran instead of the Shah. The Shah has kicked this dude out of Iran, so he can't do anything. Well, when Jimmy Carter here is the president, a situation arises with the Shah. And here's a picture of Jimmy Carter with the Shah. Now, Jimmy Carter, again, does not agree with what the Shah does, but wants to work with him so he can get him to not kill him. He's not going to kick anybody out because that's not Christian values. So Jimmy Carter has as all presidents do because of the oil that America is necessitated by with Iran. The Shah is diagnosed with cancer, all right, during Jimmy Carter's time in office. America is the leading place on earth for cancer research and cancer treatment. So the Shah here, all right, on the left, he asked Jimmy Carter if he can come to America to get cancer treatment. Jimmy Carter says yes. All right, so this is a picture of the Shah arriving at JFK Airport in 1979, coming into America to get cancer treatment. As soon as the Shah leaves Iran, guess who shows up in Iran? The Ayatollah Khomeini shows back up in Iran and takes over Iran, and the Shah basically, he's not even in Iran, he is in America, but the Shah loses all power, and Ayatollah takes over, and their entire government changes. It's like the Islamic Revolution. They, at this point, have Sharia law, where their laws in Iran are going to be based on the Quran. Anyway, let's get too much into world history here. So once Ayatollah takes over, there's obviously then a backlash towards the Shah. They don't want to just move on, they want to punish the Shah. So once the Ayatollah takes over, the Ayatollah tells Jimmy Carter and America, send us the Shah back so that we can punish him and hold him accountable for these crimes. And Jimmy Carter is like, no, I'm not going to do that for a couple reasons. Number one, he's here getting cancer research. Number two, I'm not going to send him over there just to be executed by you guys. So sorry, I'm not going to send a man to his death. Like, we're trying to move past that. So then Iran, because America won't give Iran the Shah back to execute him, turn against America, and now Iran and the religious fundamentalists that have taken over in Iran do not like America. All right, you're with me now. So Iran, unhappy with America because we won't give them the Shah. So a group of college students in Iran that obviously support the Ayatollah Khomeini invade the American embassy, because we had an embassy there because we worked with the Shah. The embassy and the Americans are still there. The embassy gets overrun by people who like the Ayatollah Khomeini, and they take all the Americans that work in the embassy hostage. They don't kill any of them, but they do take them hostage. All right. So they say, hey, if you want these hostages back, all right, you're going to have to give us the Ayatollah Khomeini, or sorry, you have to give the Ayatollah Khomeini the Shah, all right, or you're not getting your Americans back. So Jimmy Carter's in a tough situation here. So Jimmy Carter does what I think a lot of Americans would assume should happen. He tries to send in a rescue mission to get them out. It's a special forces mission, and it goes horribly wrong, and for a variety of reasons. It really goes down to Jimmy Carter. Now, in his defense, he screwed up, and he admits it. He basically, like special forces, the Green Berets, the Navy SEALs, everybody wanted to be involved in this ability to rescue these hostages. Well, when they couldn't agree, Jimmy Carter basically just said, well, you give me the best people from each group and we'll make like a super special team and go in and do it. The plane crashes on the runway. I mean, it's a complete failure. They never even get anywhere near the hostages because these men had never worked together, and it was a complete catastrophe. We learned from this, and because of Jimmy Carter's mistake, that you send in the people that you train. You don't try to make up a whole new group of special forces guys once something happens. So this is why, jumping way ahead, when Osama bin Laden, and we'll talk about that in the next unit, when Osama bin Laden is killed, it was SEAL Team 6 that went in. That just happened to be the closest special forces unit at the time. And Barack Obama will have learned from the previous mistakes of Jimmy Carter. When it's time to send in special forces, trust that you've trained your special forces unit well enough. Well, so after this happens, this makes America look weak, makes us look ineffective. So what makes it even worse and more complicated here is the Shah ends up dying of cancer while he's here. So now what does the Ayatollah do? Because the Ayatollah, while the college students have captured the hostage, and they're here, this is over a year now, all right? They're going to end up being here like 400 plus days, all right? The Ayatollah doesn't want to just give the hostages away, because if he does that, then it just, he feels like he should get something out of it, but the Shah's dead. So the Ayatollah says, I'll tell you what, America, if you will vote Jimmy Carter out of office, I will release the hostages. So and at this point, Jimmy Carter is coming up for re-election soon, so that it's a touchy situation there with the hostages, which we'll come back to here in a second. But the question is, explain how the Iran hostage crisis hurt the American perception of Jimmy Carter as an effective president. Like, what was he unable to do, and how did that hurt him politically? All right, so let's talk about some positives of Jimmy Carter, though, things that he does, that he is responsible for. While he is president, Jimmy Carter kind of expands on what Nixon had done and meets with Brezhnev, and because Nixon and Brezhnev had signed the SALT Treaty, Strategic Arms Limitations Treaty, Jimmy Carter and Brezhnev now meet, and they're going to sign what's called SALT II. Is going to further reduce nuclear weapons. This is important for America. Now, granted, there's still plenty of nukes to wipe each other out. It shows a couple things. Number one, that Russia and America are going to collectively move forward in trying to not nuke each other. All right, this is a continued belief and desire from both sides. Number two, this is a Democrat, whereas Richard Nixon was a Republican. Multiple political parties, different viewpoints. I mean, you couldn't have two more different people than Jimmy Carter and Richard Nixon, but they both want the same thing of a reduction of arms. So it does show a collective movement forward in America regardless of who's in charge. So again, we're putting limits on nukes, but it's you can still wipe out the earth multiple times over with what is still left. So the question here is, what is significant about SALT II? So pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. So Jimmy Carter has one huge win while he is the president that he gets no credit for at the time. So Jimmy Carter, being a devout Christian, knows a whole bunch of stuff about Christianity and the history of it. Because he teaches the Bible. He's been doing it forever. So there is a lot of tension in the Middle East, all right? Specifically between Israel, which is a whole unit itself on Israel being a Jewish nation at the time, and the hostilities in the region, because all the other nations are Muslim. The tensions between the Jewish country of Israel and the Muslim country of Egypt. Egypt declares war on Israel like all the time, and America always goes in and helps defend Israel. So there's a lot of tension here between Israel and Egypt, and America somewhat involved. So Egypt and Israel are always going to war. And Jimmy Carter says, I want that to stop. So Egypt and Israel hate each other with a vicious passion. So Jimmy Carter invites the leader of Israel and the leader of Egypt to Camp David, like the president's kind of retreat house, and doesn't tell the other one that the other one is coming. So the leaders show up thinking they're going to get like buddy-buddy with America, not realizing the other dude is there. There are also two really old guys, and these are the guys sitting on either side of Richard Nixon, sitting on the other side of Jimmy Carter. So see how everybody's smiling and getting along? They had to be here for a couple weeks before this junk happened. These guys like almost got in actual fist fights with each other. Like when they saw each other, they actually dislike each other on like a personal level. It's crazy. And so Jimmy Carter has to basically break them up. So Jimmy Carter's a devout Christian, Egypt's devout Muslim, and Israel is devout Jewish. So Jimmy Carter basically has to play peacemaker here, because when these guys start arguing, they're not arguing about stuff that has happened in the last 10 or 15 years. They're talking about historical religious text and things that have happened in between their societies thousands of years ago. And usually America's like, I don't know what you guys are talking about. But because Jimmy Carter is a devout Christian and knows the Bible inside and out and knows what these guys' arguments are about, is able to effectively mediate and be like, okay, I see you have a right to be upset about that, and I understand that. So you see why he's upset, right? All right. Now, understand, I got you, hold on. Now, understand what his point of view on this, all right? His view is And by doing this back and forth for both of them and being a mediator, it really does help them come to an agreement that whether or not they agree on stuff in the past or not, fighting currently is not a good idea. So after 2 weeks, they come, and I mean, these countries go to war like every other week, it seems like. They come out and they have this big press conference here called the Camp David Accords, where Egypt and Israel promise never to go to war again. And this is them signing it, and everybody's clapping. Yeah, everybody's happy about this. There's a 100% expectation as soon as they leave, they're going to go back to war again. So while this makes the news, everyone's like, oh, Jimmy Carter got, he got water not to be wet kind of thing. Like, oh, they're not going to go to war. I'm sure that's going to be successful. So the Camp David Accords get passed. Jimmy Carter gets no credit for it because nobody believes it's actually going to be effective. As of the recording of this lesson in 2022, they have not gone to war again. This has been, 45 years that this has been effective. And so because of that, this is considered a huge win. And it would be magnificent for him politically had people actually believed it would stick like it does. And they don't think it would, so he doesn't get the political clout for it. So the question here is, the Camp David Accords was the most significant political achievement of Jimmy Carter's time in office. Why did he not benefit from this win politically? So we just talked about that, so pause me, answer that completely. We're moving on. All right, so Jimmy Carter, in July of 1979, this is leading right up to the election, and things aren't going well. The hostages are still being held in Iran. Nobody gives them credit for the Camp David Accords. People are really irritated about the gas prices keep going up and down. There's all this other stuff. And Jimmy Carter, basically, he comes on TV. He's like, I need to talk to the American people. And he comes on as a parent of America and gives us a firm talking to. He says, hey, y'all want to keep talking about this idea that, you don't want the Middle East to do this or that. We want to control this and that. He goes, the problem, it's us. All right? So he says, and this is his famous Malay speech, and I have it typed out here if you want to read it. I'm not going to go through it. He basically says, we're consuming too much. We have a dependence on oil that makes us be required to be involved in the Middle East. We actually care more about the stuff we own than the loved ones that we are with. That's a problem, all right? Literally everything Jimmy Carter says here is 100% true. He calls out America and says, America, we're not doing this right. We need to change the way we're buying too much stuff. Our culture is wrong. This is the exact man that got elected in 1976. All right. The American people do not respond well to this. They're like, what? American people don't want the president to yell at them. They haven't. You elect a president to fix your problems, not to bring them to you. Jimmy Carter, all right, who is exactly who they elected, a strong, morally firm man in his beliefs, is a complete failure as a president because he was a committed moral compass person. America realizes maybe we don't really want somebody who is this morally stringent. So Jimmy Carter, again, one of the best people we've ever had in the Oval Office, not an effective president, because after this speech called the Malay speech, where he basically yells at America, the election happens. The blue states are the states that Jimmy Carter wins, all right? And one of those is his home state of Georgia. But when Jimmy Carter loses the election in 1980, all right, and he loses the election to Ronald Reagan, one of the positive, and Jimmy Carter says this is the one, like he got to kind of end on a positive note. As soon as Ronald Reagan got sworn in, Ayatollah Khomeini kept his promise and released the hostages from the Iran hostage crisis for 444 days, and all the people that were held hostage for that long in Iran do come home. But Jimmy Carter while he's a very important president, it really shows the American culture of how much we have changed and how much we really haven't changed. And sometimes what America says we want and what America actually wants can a lot of times be two separate things. So the question here is, why do you think no president has ever attempted to tell the American people they should change their behavior since Jimmy Carter did it in the Malaise speech? So answer that completely. That is the end of this unit. And I'll see you guys for the next unit.